but I would watch someone else's.
Same thing. Name your theater, name your companies.
But yeah, but the fact that it's,
in the past, taking the opportunity to use your festival as further platform to further develop it.
What about you guys?
So what we're going to do at this point in the evening is that I'm going to pass around this microphone. If you haven't gathered it yet, we're using a microphone not because we can't hear each other, but because we're recording this for posterity. So I'm going to hand you the microphone, and what I want to do at this point is just have you share the things in your conversation that you felt like were surprising, or were the most important, or were the most curious, or that you felt like impacted your own practice the most. Whether that practice is dancing or writing or being an audience member. So does anyone have any, and then we actually have a short performance to close out the evening by group number 3, which we're all going to go into the fire hall to watch that for as long as you'd like. So who has an insight or a memorable moment from their conversation?
We were talking about reality TV over here, and it was something that Wayne Hazard said early on that really hit me, which is that reality TV shows and something like So You Think You Can Dance have the potential to expose a vast number of people to a similar process that experimental dance artists or contemporary dance artists use, which is around coming up, having an assignment or a structure to work with, coming up against obstacles, working hard, having successes, having failures, hanging in there, getting in fights with who you're working with, having to work it out, having to compromise, all those kinds of things. And this real process, these really process-oriented shows, and a process that unfolds over the course of a season of TV. And that really reframed it for me in an interesting way.
Yeah. Other thoughts? I heard lots of interesting conversations, so.
Just the different contexts of legitimacy and professionalism, and this idea of pedigree and legitimacy and professionalism, how that is very different in a different context. It varies from context to context, and that our culture of dance is actually multiplicitous. Anyone over here?
Sure. One thing about YouTube was that a few of us liked was that whenever you have a mainstream video up on YouTube, you also have a bunch of little videos of 13-year-old girls acting out that music video, and sometimes you never even get to the original because there are so many imitations that are almost as highly ranked.
Something that Samantha said when I was over at Monique's table is kind of reverberating for me, which is there's something curious about YouTube and all this dance up on YouTube, that there's a kind of lack of context is what's happening. Or there's a lack of the usual context that we're used to, and I think that can feel like a lack to me, but I think that there's also quite a bit of potential there, and to kind of see both sides is kind of probably the good thing to do. But.
I'm curious from either of you about what is the potential of the lack of context? What is the upside of that in terms of what does that offer us?
Well, I think, so one of the things that I was intending to articulate when we were talking about sort of the pros and cons of YouTube was that, you know, when an artist creates a piece of work, and wants to get to a very personal or tender moment, for example, they're gonna take a really long time to build on that moment, and they're gonna maybe slam us with information, and there's gonna be, you know, the audience is gonna drink some wine, and they're gonna be sitting in the dark for a long time, and there's gonna be sort of a kind of attentional foreplay, for example, and so when they get to that moment, they're ready for it. And I think that the downside can be that they're not ready for it when they see it, but then maybe the upside is that not everybody has that kind of commitment to sit and watch art for that long, and maybe they don't care enough, and maybe it takes a really long time to train our brains to go from watching TV to watching, you know, an hour and a half long performance. So maybe they just get to see that part, and that can be a good thing for them. So it can be inclusive. As an artist, it kind of breaks my heart, but then the other side is like, not everybody's trained to do that, and so I want them to experience it, you know, too, so.
Well, I think another possible upside is just that it can break down whatever our intention was. My intention was to have this focused thing for you to watch and have this experience of, and then you only see 5 seconds of it on YouTube and grainy stuff while you're making chicken, and you have, it's a completely different thing. So there's this gap of opening for something new to happen.
I think, like, there's also, it's like, then I think that, you know, by 45 minutes into a piece, we're like, you know, we have all this, like, forgiveness for the, like, we're, like, in love with the characters and the dancers, hopefully. And then I think that one of the downsides of, like, seeing this really intimate moment, for example, is like you're just gonna look at it and be like, oh, she's tickling her foot. But like when you see it on stage, you don't even care anymore. That's like, you're in a whole nother world with it. It really is, for me, it's like resonating, like when you love somebody, you don't see that they have a spare tire, but so it's like there's, but at the same time, I think it is educating, and I would prefer that people just have a general idea of what dance is, even if they haven't had the intimate experience. But
It also allows people to, create their own context. I mean, I think that's the beauty of YouTube. I can watch and be like, this means this to me, and it doesn't really matter to me if I'm wrong. I mean, do I need to be wrong or right?
There's this really wonderful article somewhere on the internet by this conceptual poet named Kenneth Goldsmith, and the title of the article is "If It's Not on the Internet, It Doesn't Exist." And I think it's very clever and very funny, and you should all read it. But it's also very interesting as someone who makes work that's for the stage and that's intended to be seen live, what it means when someone asserts, maybe rightfully so, that if it's not accessible on the internet, if when you Google yourself you don't exist on the internet, you know? Everyone Googles each other. And if your work isn't on YouTube, I'm not going to go see your show, because I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know, I think that it's a really fascinating argument when talking about things that are originally intended to be live.
I don't know, I think it's an interesting argument. I don't know if it's true. I don't know. I would go see a lot of shows that I couldn't see something on the internet from. So I know that's probably not the question, but I think it's more random than that. I don't know if people do that much research before they go and see a show. But I mean, I think it helps to have seen something, maybe. It sparks the interest, but yeah.
I think there are also so many different circles to have this conversation in, because I see these conversations going back to what can we put online that's going to make them want to come see us live, because that's what we care about. And I think, but there's also the conversation about, well, what is the art online, and do we value that as much as the live experience? And you know, I think sometimes that we get in marketing mind when we have these conversations, which is valid, but it's not the whole conversation.
Thank you, sorry, I didn't mean to grab. Well, and we made Lipstick for YouTube. We did not make it to try and get MTV to play it. We didn't, we made it for YouTube, and we scaled it for YouTube. And we didn't expect it to have the result. I didn't necessarily expect it. I hoped it would have the result of bringing people to my live work and, getting Mark DJ gigs. And having people buy the track and all of the 5 different remixes of the track on iTunes, but it really was built as a video entity, and I'm excited as an aging dancer. I'm excited about making stuff that can survive without my body having to be present to make it happen.
Yeah.
You were talking about making dance more accessible to more people, and I have the sense that actually if that is going to happen, that's going to come more from dances which are specifically made for on video or film, like what there are these dance film festivals, and because film is such a lingua franca for everybody, I just think that will have a more profound impact on audience development, if I may use that word, than those reality TV shows.
The Red Shoes is playing for free in the Castro right now, by the way.
Red shoes. Other thoughts? Anyone who felt like they had some sort of epiphany or exciting moment in their conversation that hasn't gotten to speak yet?
No. I have spoken. This is really quick. I realized that I actually don't care about context. Here's what I realized. The other day, I was watching bull riders on TV at my dad's house, and I was like, oh my god, these bull riders are so hot. Oh my god, these bull riders have awesome centers. They're so strong. And I was watching that from the perspective of a 35-year-old dancer who just got a divorce. And it was completely engaging. I was like, they're hot. I'm going to watch it for 2 hours because these guys were hot. I love the way they fell off the bulls. They were really, they were gorgeous athletes. They were amazing to watch from the perspective of a dancer. And I loved the way they used their quarters. It was gorgeous. And who cares if, whatever pulls people in to give them an experience. I think that ultimately that really is what we care about as dancers. And I think sometimes we forget that as choreographers. We just want people to have an engaging experience, right? So who cares? That's what I think now. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Any final words, Mary, before we wrap it up for the performance?
I'm happy, I love it when we all get to talk like this. That's why I want to keep this going.
Right. So stay tuned for more Dance Discourse Project. Our next one is forthcoming and will be fantastic sometime in June. Also, if you like watching dance and talking about it, you'll really love Second Sundays, which Dancers Group and Counterpulse put together, and you can come this coming Sunday, actually, at 2 p.m. To watch 4 choreographers. It's a really short show. It's less than an hour long, and then you get to talk about it, and then you get to go home, and it is good for you and good for the dancers and really fun. So, gosh, I sold that like medicine, didn't I? And then I also just want to invite you to keep coming back to Counterpulse. We have our artists in residence, Kendra Kimbrough-Barnes and Jose Navarrete and Violeta Luna, and they have new work coming up the first weekend in April, and it's going to be really fantastic. And we're going to get to, you guessed it, talk about it afterwards. So lots more opportunities coming up at Counterpulse. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Philip, and he's going to lead you into a little experience journey. And then after that, please stick around and chat with each other, talk with people you didn't get to talk with. Don't be shy. Use this as a networking opportunity to meet people who you want to meet and drink some more wine.
Okay, we made a piece in the alley, so let's line up by the door.